Hey everybody, thanks for being here. I wanted to give you some great news. I'll take a little bit of time to go over the data, but the headline, at least for me, is our kids and our teachers did great on the STAAR exam. Earlier in the week we talked about the end of course exams. Just for the uninitiated, there's STAAR exams have high school exams. We call those EOC, end of course exams, and there's 5 of them. And we talked about that data earlier in the week, and you might have seen some reporting on it. That's Algebra 1, English 2, and US History. And then we have the 3rd through 8th grade STAAR exams. So all total there are 20 exams. So this morning we got preliminary data from TEA on the 3 through 8th grade. So we want to share some of that because that has not been reported. I'll review quickly the end of course exam results just in case you did not get that. And besides, it tells the whole story then, both the high school and the STAAR 3 through 8 grade, okay? So that's what we're looking at. The title is the Houston Comeback. I kind of like that. Because we were a struggling district for a long time, even before COVID, and you'll see at these results today, especially for the EOC, we have returned to prior COVID results. So we have caught up and surpassed what the district did in 2019 for our end of course exams, except for US History. We're just 1 point away from that. I don't think any other district has done that yet, recovered from COVID. All right, we've been here, it was 2 years ago when the state intervened in HISD. Again, at that time we were far behind the state averages in all 20 exams. And now, after 2 years, there's been a great growth in student achievement, and especially in reading and math. The number of students who can read at grade level is much higher than it was 2 years ago, and the number of students who can do math at grade level is much higher than it was 2 years ago. That's what, in the end of the day, these scores mean. And we'll talk a little bit later about why even that is important. So here's where we started. Those are the numbers. Again, preliminary data, I don't know if you realize that the state will give us another set of data in a few weeks, and then the final data will come out in July. But they won't be too far off what you see here. But if they do change a point or two, remember I told you these are preliminary. Still, these data are from the state, and you can see there the red bar is 23, the spring of 23, the STAAR exams, the results. And the blue bar is, the red bar is states, and the blue bar is HISD. So you can see back in 23, we were way behind the state average. Just look at algebra, for example. 11 points behind the state average. At the same time, you also know that we had 121 D and F schools. This is a struggling district in 23. And these graphs, just these two alone, show how much we struggled academically. Far behind the state average, 121 D and F campuses. So here are the results after 2 years. This has not been repeated anywhere in the state. This 2-year growth relative to the state, 23 points improvement in biology, 17 points in algebra, 5 in English, 8 in English 2, and 4 in US History. To give our listeners some context, 2 points a year or 3 points a year for a district this size would be good, would be considered good. Think about if you did that every year for 5 years, you move the bar 10 points. So to see this sort of growth in 2 years is just incredible and hasn't been done by any other district. These are the actual numbers for the 1 year increase, so last year to this year. Algebra in particular was just incredible, and biology 9 points, and then you can see the others, English 1, 2, and U.S. history. Now for 2 years, this is, I showed you the 1 year, this is now 2 years, right, from 23 to 25. So the improvement in algebra is 17 points in 2 years. What does that mean? So the numbers there are, you see meets plus. What that is if you can read at grade level, we say you meet expectations. Or masters, that's the plus part. Or more than met expectations. So that's the line where we say, okay, a student can read at grade level, is proficient at reading or proficient at math. So that's what meets plus means. So 17% more of our students who took algebra are doing math at grade level than they were 2 years ago. Now we're above 51. Not only are we above 51, you'll see in a minute we're above the state average. This is our 2 years growth compared to the state. Because if the state also grew 17 points, and I'm not sure that's cause for a lot of celebration, but given that the state only improved 2 points in 2 years, which means that most districts only grew 2 points in 2 years, we grew 17. Biology is even greater. And so English 1, you might say, well, 5 points in 2 years is good. It's not great, but the state went down 2 points in 2 years. So our difference is 7 points. We closed the gap with the state 7 points. You follow me? And in English 2, the state grew only 1 point in 2 years, and we grew 8. U.S. history, we only grew 4 points in 2 years, which is good. It's even, not that I'm happy that the state went down, but the state did go down 3 points, and that means we closed the gap 7 points with the state. So that's an incredible difference with the state's performance and our performance. And then once again, on the left you see the gap in 23. 11 points in algebra, you see that, 45 to 34. What is it today? For the first time, we're above the state average. We not only closed that gap 11 points, but now we're 4 points above the state in just 2 years. So I know you're reporters, so you don't stand up and applaud, but if I was at the Walmart break room and I gave these scores to those folks, they would stand up and applaud. Or Saltgrass, or somewhere where there's normal people. They would do that, and we should. Let me just remind you and anybody you write to, if nothing else, we should be applauding our kids and our teachers. This is great news for kids. And by the way, they were celebrating before the end of the school year because we got early release data and we shared it with them, and there was a lot of celebrations. There'll be more when we start the school year off. But all of us should do that for our kids and for our teachers. Anyway, biology also over the state average, and we're 1 point away in U.S. history. And all those new scores are above, except for U.S. history, we're now above the 2019 scores. All right, that's the high school, 3 through 8. This is new. It's hot off the press, so you don't see the pretty slides, but this information I think I can walk you through is really key, really important. Let's see if this doesn't work on that. So, it is? I don't see anything. Oh, it's hard for me to see. All right, well then, if you don't mind, I'm just going to use my hand. So these are the scores that we got from the state preliminary. We're still running to make sure that our data matches the state data, but this is the state data. And so you can see the state's 3 years of STAAR scores. And then you can see ours. So the first thing to note is that last year these are our reading and math scores, right? That's this column. And then compared to this column, and we're up in every single category. We grew in every single test, this column to this column, okay? And then you can see that the state in some cases grew and in some cases went down. And then what's most important that I want you to focus on is that this was good growth. Last year was good growth. So if you take 2 years, how our kids been doing in the 2 years of the intervention? So what this says is the change from 23 to 25, the growth in proficiency is right here. 3, 12, 9, 9, you follow me? And then the growth for the state is this column. I'm sorry that thing is in your way, but if you take a picture of it, you'll see that. So the state grew 1 point in 2 years in third grade reading. We grew 3 points. The state grew 7 points in fourth grade reading. We grew 12 points. That's how you read that. Okay, I know it's a lot of numbers on this slide, but when you take your time, you'll be able to decipher it. The point of all of that is that compared to the state, our kids killed it. We're way above the state in most of these categories. Not only are we way above, but when you look at this, I hope you can see that. You see these colored markers? Remember I told you when we started, we were behind the state in every single exam? And in EOC now, we're above the state average in algebra, we're above the state average in biology, we're almost at the state average in US history by 1 point. Well, in math, for the 6 math exams for elementary school and middle school, we are above the state average now in 4 of them. In just 2 years. Our kids above the average of the state in just 2 years when they were far behind. In language arts, we're not above the state average. That's true, even though we gained on the state. This is how much we gained on the state right here. But you can see we're very close to the state average. We're at 50, the state's at 53. We're at 56, the state's at 57. You see that? We're at 51, the state's at 54. We're at 50, the state's at 52, 53, 57. So give us another year and we'll catch the state in ELA. That's the trend. And one of the things I want to really emphasize for our kids, they have stepped up and their teachers have stepped up. The number one variable in improving achievement is the quality of instruction of the teacher. This is not magic. This doesn't happen by accident. This happens because teachers and kids are engaged in the work and are wanting to learn. And yes, our instruction's more rigorous, but more of our kids can read. And when kids can read, they not only feel better, but they have more success, more chances for a successful high school career, and then a successful ability to engage a year 2035 world and workplace. Let me talk about that in a minute. Again, The headline is, our students are outpacing the rest of Texas. In all 20 exams, we're behind. We started behind. So it's unreasonable to think that we would be ahead in all 20 exams, but we are closing that gap. So we are growing faster than everybody, and now in several of the exams, we are ahead of this state. And you can see the results here. So if you took all the math together, on average, we grew 8 percentage points in 2 years, and the state stayed flat in math. In reading, we gained 8 versus the 3 from the state. And then you can see the science and social studies. Finally, I've said a little bit, but let me just be much more clear about what it means. Yes, it's just a number, and we have other numbers that validate the increase. NWEA, that's a MAP assessment, also very strong. We're going to show that to the board in August, but we already know such improvement there too. NAEP, National Assessment of Educational Progress, you already know that we did well there too. So these numbers start to make a trend, but what they really mean, and I've said this before, and let me just re-emphasize, it means our kids can read better. Not just some, many more students are reading at grade level than they were 2 years ago, many more. The percentage is huge, the percentage increase. That means they can read better. They can do math at grade level, many more. Thousands and thousands. We'll calculate that exact number when the dust settles here, but thousands of students can do math at grade level prior to this test, prior to the intervention, That means something for their livelihood. Good Reason Houston put out a report 6 months ago or 8 months ago, and that was the report about livable wage. The students who graduated in 2017, 6 years later, only 17% were earning a livable wage. Only 17%. And if that doesn't make us concerned as a group of people who live in the city, who want kids to do well in life, that's a damning statistic. And one of the things that Good Reason Houston said, or the people who did the research said, what you can do about it is, first of all, have a stronger academic outcomes in their elementary and middle school, particularly Algebra 1 and 8th grade reading. So take a look at that report from Good Reason Houston. Algebra 1, 8th grade reading. Why? Because the high-wage, high-skilled, high-demand jobs of the year 2030 and beyond require better, stronger math skills. And you have to be able to read also at grade level. So this translates to quality of life, to success in the future on year 2030 and year 2035 jobs. It translates to that. And it translates to a livable wage. So this is important. This is something to be applauding and encouraging. When you see kids, when you see teachers, I hope, regardless of anything else that's going on, let's take a second and applaud kids. Applaud the students. This hasn't been done anywhere. My team is checking, we're doing data checks on other states. We don't think this has been done anywhere in the United States with regard to how much has your students grown in 2 years with regard to proficiency. Now, they may define it differently, but fine. Based on your own test, Louisiana, Washington State, how much did your kids grow in proficiency in 2 years? I doubt any large urban or medium urban district has gotten the results we've got, ever. So maybe some of you will go research that too, and then you can either prove me wrong or prove me right, but you're going to be hard pressed to find another district that has done what we've done, what our kids have done. and it's worthy of applause, but also support for our teachers and principals. Am I taking questions? Okay. All right, time for a few questions. Yes.
Superintendent, what do you point to specifically in your curriculum as to why there's an improvement? I know you cited quality of teachers, but is there anything specific in curriculum that you'd like to address?
Well, thanks for asking, and I'm looking at Maggie because she knows what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is it's not one thing. It's a whole-scale systemic reform. We did many changes and many systemic changes all at one time. But if I had to pick one, I would say it's what you kind of intimated, and that is the quality of instruction. We have focused on instruction, instructional strategies. We tie curriculum and instruction tightly together, and as a result, our teachers are more effective. We train them, they get a lot of feedback, and as a result, their instruction to the kids is way more engaging, and they're just doing a more effective job, and the kids are responding.
How does that look like, though? What does it mean to be tying instruction and curriculum together tighter?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So quickly, and I'm giving short shrift to this, it's really a long answer, but let me give you the short answer. You can't just throw a good book like Amplify is a good textbook. So is Eureka and Carnegie. You can't just throw that. Am I off camera? Do you guys want me to move? Okay. Okay. You can't just throw a book or a textbook at a teacher and say, here, teach this. This is a good curriculum. You have to design the lesson with instruction in mind. You have to design the text materials with instruction in mind, and the lesson plan, the PowerPoint. And our curriculum department has done that really well, and so it has made it easier for teachers to absorb. We call it internalize the material and then deliver that instruction.
Somebody else?
Well, let's get a couple real quick. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Myers, for the presentation. Let me bring your attention to this one demographic of students who show like a 30% gap with other ethnic groups. I'm talking about Black students, and they have shown a huge gap when it comes to two student groups, especially white and Asian students. Could you tell us a little bit about the changes that you're making in terms of instruction and classroom resources that cater to these students, and do you think that these group of students will be able to earn a livable wage in 2035?
Yes, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Look, I don't have the graph in front of you. I already looked at some of the data though. And our Black and brown kids are closing the gap even more so than the entire district. So let me give you an example. Algebra 1. The Hispanic kids for the first time are at a 50% meets and masters. Now the district is at 51. Hispanic kids are at 50. For the first time, Hispanic kids have beat the state average. What do our Black kids do? Our Black kids are at 46. 2 years ago, the Black students were at something like 26 or 28. So huge improvement. Are they at the state average yet? No. So it used to be like a 20-point, and in some cases, you're right, a 30-point gap. It's no longer that way. It's a lot smaller. I'm not saying there's not a gap. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we're working so hard in spending the resources on the new education system schools, because the kids who are underserved are further behind, and they were. Our white students need a good education too, and the instruction is, and they're improving also, by the way. When we give you that breakdown subgroup data later, we just got the score, so give us a little bit of time. You're going to see that our white students also improve. Did they improve as much as the Black and brown kids? No. The Black and brown kids, for the most part, improved more than our white students. Having said that, our white students are well above the state average in proficiency. And so that's what you mean by the gap. But I feel very confident that that gap is closing. And we got a ways to go in some areas, true.
Margaret, you had a question, correct?
Yeah,
And then Claire, we'll come to you next.
I'm looking at this in comparison to Apollo, which never did especially well in reading. Didn't meet the goals, said, it's not hard, you can't do it. But did in math, but then it plateaued, and then math scores went down when a lot of the supports for it were gone. How are you gonna avoid that? Because it costs a lot to do what you're doing.
So Apollo never did get the goals that we got, even in math. And two, it was a program, not a systemic change. So huge difference. You're right, though. It's not so much that it's expensive as it means that you have to reprioritize resources. You're about to see a budget presentation where we show the sustainability. We decreased the budget deficit incredibly. You're going to see that tonight. And so we're going to maintain over time an $800 million fund balance, meaning that what we've already paid for in the NES world, we can continue to do and still maintain a healthy budget. So Apollo program, like most programs, if you take it away, sometimes it just falls apart. We're doing it systemically, and so our gains, our growth, are going to continue to see bear fruit in the future.
Claire?
First of all, congrats on these gains and thanks for having us. Going back to the EOC scores, across all subjects there are fewer tests taken versus 2 years ago, which is understandable given that there's 13,000 fewer students, right?
Well, yeah, 30,000 over 6 years, but go ahead.
Those are particularly profound in biology and algebra, so 5,000 fewer students in biology and 3,600 fewer in algebra when compared to 2 years ago. That's also where you saw the most gains, and I know I've talked to you guys about having NES students take biology in 10th grade versus 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at these gains, how do you kind of weigh in, and how can you factor in, a decrease in enrollment, smaller pool, having slightly different students tested versus these kind of raw gains that you're seeing?
So I mean that's the way it is every year, right? A different set of kids take algebra every year, and so what you want to do is have a set point, algebra versus algebra, at the end of the year. So what you see in biology and algebra, even over 1 year, same number of students, huge gains, actually even more gains than the year before. Part of it, let's talk about algebra real quick. The reason why you're seeing the gains is not because of fewer kids taking it. In fact, about the same number took it last year as this year. What you're seeing is 8th grade math last year was 8 percentage point increase. So you take that, those kids now taking algebra. So not only do you get the good algebra instruction, but now you have kids who are no math better, and so that just compounds. And the same thing with many other exams. So as we get further along in this transformation, I think more results will be compounded, and you're going to see continued improvement. Now, it's hard to get this amount of growth in 1 year. We did it 2 years in a row. So I don't want to keep saying that we're going to have the most extraordinary results every year, but I think we're going to have good results again next year, partly because of what I just said, the compounding effects.
Maria?
Yes, you already answered a lot of the questions on the STAAR. I did have a question, just based on parents have been asking us this. I know it's been 2 years since the takeover and 4 board members were replaced. It's going to be their first meeting tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to us why and why now? And could we expect maybe a change in board members in the future as well?
So the first thing I need to say is that the 9 board of managers that brought us to this point, who supported the reform efforts, not without debate, of course, got the best growth and achievement and systems change than any other board in the history of HISD. we owe them a debt of gratitude. And as some headline said, I have nothing but praise for them, which is true. It's tough being a board member. They were board members during intervention, which makes it even tougher. So hats off. Let's please, if you get a chance, thank them, praise them. With regard to why, that is totally up to the commissioner, and so you have to ask him that question. But with regard to the other members, I'm looking forward to working with 4 new board members. It's also going to be challenging. It's not going to be easy for them, but I feel confident this new board will also do great things for the district.
We have time for one more. Anybody?
So, based on what we see so far, preliminary, it looks like accountability ratings may improve for 2025. So, based on what you see right now, do you have a new estimate as to when you might meet some of these exit criteria? How many multi-year failing schools you might have in this coming ratings?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And you're right. We have a guess, but we don't know. We won't know for sure until July. We'll get it from the state. But it was incredible for our schools to go from 121 to 41. That alone was an incredible feat in 1 year. And yes, we believe that 41 number of D and F campuses will go down. I don't know how much. I'm loath to venture a guess, so let's just leave it at that. It'll go down, and then we'll have a more accurate picture in July.